Hello, and welcome to the video version of the Left of Greg podcast. I'm Brian Marin, the host and creator of the show. As always, I will be joined by human behavior expert Mr. Greg Williams, who the show is affectionately named after. On the show, we discuss different topics through the lenses of what we call human behavior pattern recognition and analysis. If you'd like to find out more about what that is, please check the links in the episode details and go to our website to learn more. Please don't forget to follow us on social media. The links are also in the episode details, and hit the like and subscribe button to help support our work. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the show. All right, well, good morning, Greg. Hopefully I can stay on track today. Just letting you know, it was 2 nights in a row with only about 3 hours of sleep, waking up at that 1 a.m. time and just
only Dr.
awake.
Eric Forum would be against us for saying sleep is overrated.
So
neither of us have very good sleep behaviors.
Well, I don't know. I have been on point for a while now. I've been doing well, and then every once in a while you get one, and then when you get a couple nights in a row is when it gets rough. So it's a Friday morning when we're recording this, and if I don't, it's already the end of the week after all the stuff we've been doing. Then 2 nights in a row with about 3 hours of sleep. So
we'll what we need? We need a couple of rippets. We should on Friday.
Would be great.
Remember the little rippet cans?
Yeah.
So we need a couple of those. The only problem is that our urine will turn whatever color the flavor of the rippet is almost immediately.
Yeah,
it's like asparagus. You know the asparagus after effect. So maybe we need a rippet, Brian.
Yeah, well, that would be a perfect sponsor. I was just saying that'd be a perfect sponsor for this podcast. Anyone, if it would just be if you know, you know. So
exactly. We're not going to describe it. You do your own research. That's hilarious.
So for today's episode, we're kind of calling it, F this guy, and you can also use F that guy or girl or person, but it's colloquially known as F that guy or F this guy. And what we mean by that is, different situations that occur, from the point of someone is, someone makes a statement, does something, says something, you're in progress in a situation, right? And you go, you know what, F this guy. And you continue doing whatever you're doing. You write that person off. You don't listen to what they say. You don't pay attention to the situation. And there's
you ignore facts to the contrary. Yes. Exactly. I'm with you.
So there's many situations where this occurs. So I'll throw to you to kind of give us an example, if you will, I guess, of a time or a situation where someone goes, you know what, F this guy.
Yeah. So I'll give you 2 brief ones, and everybody will infer from those. Listen, in the legal realm, every time you say F this guy, it turns into case law that's not going to be complimentary to the law enforcement community or police, right? So I'll give you 2 very brief ones. One that was just not too long ago. We had information that this person that had a warrant was going to be in this place, and the warrant had never been successfully executed because this person always reads minds. I mean, he's just never going to be there. So we show up at the location, we do some surveillance and counter surveillance, and sure enough, the person is in the house. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to upset the apple cart and make a big hodo out of it. We want to go and go, hey, we're all here. We're not leaving. We know he's in there. Let's go out. There's a very new officer that's just to my left, and there's a screen door and me and the guy that's opened the screen door. I'm negotiating with him. We see the person, and there's a very, very low level of danger at this point. Everything is going wavy gravy. And this young kid is just vibrating. He's like a tuning fork. And I'm doing the Father Flanagan. You get what I'm saying? Hey, we need to come in. We're going to talk. We see him. We can come in if we want to. We don't have to wait for your permission because I see the guy. He's the one with the felony warrant. And this kid gets all of a sudden to this vibration point where he says out loud, F this guy, pushes me out of the way, grabs that guy off the porch. Brian, it's on.
Yeah.
It's on like Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
If you know the old saying. And now there's a brawl and it's a fight and the handcuffs are coming out and the spray and the lady in the kitchen screaming. Didn't have to go that way. It was just a couple of minutes from going great. Okay. So, now throw one more parallel just to give you this basis. We're in a completely other place, and it's about now it's got to be about 35 years ago. And there's an impetuous copper, and we're doing surveillance on this place, and we're watching and watching and watching. And the activity's coming, and we're waiting for the warrant. So as the warrant, back then, you had to make sure that you sent somebody for the warrant. And the person had to have an affidavit from the other officer swearing to the information. We didn't have the stuff now where you can call up on a phone and talk to somebody. So all of a sudden we see this slow roll on one of the surveillance cars, and the surveillance car is picking up speed, and we're going, what does he know that we don't know? Why is he not communicating? So he pulls up in front of the crib, grabs a 55-gallon drum, one of those ones that they use for a fire pit, you know what I'm saying, that people stand around, does the flip and caber toss, does the swinging it around, and right through the front window of the house, and he's in. We had no idea what's going on. Well, he had heard that the guy was on the way back from the court, didn't even understand whether the warrant had been signed yet or if it had been authorized, and he was so impatient. Now it's on. Well, people are jumping out of windows. There's shots being fired. You get what I'm trying to say? All the other vehicles are rolling because they're, going through the frequency list thinking that they missed something. Well, both of those, just before that person started that roll, was F this guy, Brian. And I'm telling you, I hear it all the time. I hear it on a traffic stop. I hear it during an arrest. And it always leads to no good. It always leads to bad policy.
The second story, I think we could do a whole nother podcast on. I have so many questions on that one. But
we were all like this as the vehicle was rolling up on the house.
I know most people are just listening, but my mouth was literally on the floor as you're telling that. Like that's a novel way to gain entry into a home or to get someone's attention.
No waiting for the SWAT team, no waiting for the RAM. You on your own. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
So and that's kind of was
everybody listening that knows me knows who that officer is, and that's why I can't go deeper.
So I'll keep mine and as anonymous as possible as well. But I always take the F this guy from, we do that with our own team members or own people we work with, right? And so I've heard that before where something came over the radio and it was, hey, hold in your position there, we got to do blah blah blah, and literally watch someone say pick up the, or before he called back said, hey, F that guy, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And then went ahead and rolled right into some really, really bad situation that thankfully didn't end up catastrophic for us. But just because he personally didn't like that individual, didn't think they were part of the cool guy club, didn't think this, that, or the other thing, completely wrote them off, right, by saying F that guy. And that's kind of the major point I want to hit first.
I love it. But first, make sure that you say in each of the incidents that we talked about, that term was the beginning of the end of everything that happened. No other factor but that term.
Everything from that point on went horribly wrong.
It was sour. Right.
It was bad. It changed the situation to a very, very bad one. Right. But the idea is when you do that, right, that when you hear that and somebody's, you know what, F that guy, that means you've completely, you've written off what they've said. That person no longer has any value to you, right, when you say that about someone.
Or to the others in your orbit.
And you start to affect those in your orbit, right, especially if you're in a leadership position. But once you write someone off, it's hard to get that back. And I look at this in a way of how I've seen you, sort of cognitively disarm people in a sense. Meaning, and not to make fun of the whole gray man thing. We can spend a whole episode doing that. But the idea is, I've seen you're a big, loud, gregarious guy that, there's no way you can just kind of hide out and have no one see you. Right. So you take the opposite approach sometimes with people by disarming them, and you look like the buffoon. You're dropping stuff, oh man, I've seen you spill stuff on yourself on purpose and not on purpose, but and what people do, I've seen that from people where they're looking at you, eyeing you up, and then once you do that, they like roll the eyes and do the, F that guy. Well, once that person does that, now you're in close. They don't ever see you as a potential threat. They don't ever see you as more than just some bumbling, idiot, and they're not going to take anything you do seriously. So that actually allows you freedom of movement. You now gained access to that person, that place, whatever the situation is. So I want to make sure, kind of psychologically and sociologically what you're doing when you say F that guy or F that girl, or they don't know what the hell they're talking about, I'm going to go ahead and do it my way. Once you do that, it's hard to get back. Like you're always going to look at that person that way, even if they're right. You know what I'm saying? So I just kind of want to start off.
No, and I think you'll never get it back. Here's the thing. In the two instances that I talked about, both of those had catastrophic consequences, not from the death or dismemberment or injury, but to the lawsuits that followed, to the irreparable harm done to, for example, you enlist the aid of other agencies. You're on this surveillance for a good long time, waiting for the warrant. You've got sufficient probable cause. You've got the teams on standby, and all of a sudden you drive up and you're unmarked and say it's on. You don't have that right. And remember, patience is the capacity to accept or tolerate delays, and there are delays everywhere in our lives.
Right.
So how many times have you been standing in a checkout line somewhere? We all still do it, no matter, even if there's self-checkout, you're standing in a self-checkout line now, right? And you're standing there and you see somebody with just an armload of stuff and you go, hey, man, go ahead of me. Okay, I've done that,
I've
right?
done that. Yeah.
And so Dog and I on Sunday, we're doing the exact same thing. We were going to go fishing up at the res. You saw the photos of that. And so we had just a couple of things that we wanted to do. And we were standing there, and the one person behind us had milk. So you're thinking milk early Sunday morning. Oh man, the kids are waiting.
The kids are waiting on for pancakes. Yeah.
So the person behind them, now Shell and I turn, and we've got only 4 items. Yeah. This person has 1, we let ahead. The next lady has 2, and she gives us the flipping stink eye. And we're like, hey, we let 1. I mean, we can't be the revolving door and let everybody. You know, we've shown empathy. Yeah. We've done that. We've demonstrated that we have the capacity for that. And right out of the mouth, well, F this, which is in the same lane as this guy. And she set her stuff down and walked out. Oh, I see. I see. So you showed us. Showed us. Listen, those types of negative emotional attachments to that situation are exactly what you're talking about. Because what you did is you kicked the chair out of any other leader that said, okay, gents, we're going to do this by the book. We're going to follow. We're going to do all that other stuff. Now what you said, to use your favorite term, we'll just have a willy-nilly approach and just let anything go. And it's horseshit. Yeah, it really is. You can get somebody hurt, and you can make yourself look like a boob in the long run or in the short term.
So this kind of gets into like heuristics and cognitive biases, right? When we do that, because it's almost like it's a heuristic, but it's like a bad one. It's a corrupt
failure.
One. It's a failed one, right? So you're looking at the situation. Maybe you know something about this person. You already have a low opinion of them, even if they're part of your own team, right? So no, you haven't taken the time to bring them up to speed. You're just going to not tolerate them because they're whatever the situation is or whatever you think of them. So you're obviously letting your own biases get in the way. And then when they come in and say, hey, wait a minute, what about this? It's F that guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about, or she doesn't know what she's talking about, that kind of thing. And so you basically, I would say, have like a corrupt file folder, and your own biases are getting in the way. And just like you stated, every time I've seen that happen, things don't go well afterwards. They really, really don't. So let's kind of crack that open a little bit, like whether it's your police examples, or I love the woman who just set her stuff down. Clearly she's got all kinds of emotional.
She didn't just set it down.
You can't cope with that. You can't cope with a person with a gallon of milk going in front of you because they have one
on a
item.
Sunday morning, for the love of God. And you're third in line now.
On the Lord's Day.
You see what I'm trying to say? Exactly. So we've I think sufficiently designed or described what patience is, to the point that we understand that patience is a virtue. I don't want to quote somebody else, but that patience is an essential part of humans interacting with humans.
I would say it's an essential part of performance, of human performance.
Yeah, it's human performance. That's a great way of putting it. We also have entitlement, and you said just a moment ago, and I wrote it down. You said that you have a low opinion of the people around you. I would say the contrary is also true.
Okay.
That you have a high opinion of yourself. And you think that you're entitled, and I can make a better decision right now. I don't have to wait for further information. And guess what? That's a precursor. Now we're getting there. So I want to talk about tactical patience in a minute, but I think what we need to do, let's describe for people that don't follow us like all the time. A heuristic is very simple. A heuristic is a tactical shortcut, just enough information to draw a reasonable conclusion. Comes a long time ago from the Greek, very old, very Greek. That's where we get Arcadia, to discover something for yourself. And once you've discovered it for yourself, you build what Brian's calling a file folder. You have a manila file folder with a little header on it, and it's things that make me mad, things I like,
Right.
why pickles blow, whatever it is. And in all your life, you take these notes, mental notes, and you put them in there, and it goes all over the cortices of your brain, so you have instant recall on any of those file folders. If you have a corrupt file folder, it'll come up just as fast as an uncorrupted file folder. And that's why you got to weed those out and build new ones. Cool thing about file folders is I can hand Brian my file folders through a story, and Brian is just as into it and can draw from that information as if he attended the event that I'm writing about. So to that, I would add, and I just wrote this down as well, a stereotype. So most people right now, they're going, oh, here we go. Look, stereotypes are almost always true. Do your research. Heuristics are almost always exactly true. A stereotype is a survival mechanism that your psychological self does to, one, reduce calories, and two, make sense quickly of an ambiguous environment. So you hear a car backfire, okay, and immediately you go, wow, that was a loud, scary sound that was very near me. Oh, I see a puff of smoke coming from the car. And I'll give you a heuristic that's also a stereotype and why they work. So your television channel changer doesn't work. So what you do is you set your television channel changer down, you take an axe and you break your plasma screen TV, you cut into the wall, and you start searching for the gnomes in your wall that are interrupting your service with their little metal helmets from the start. Listen, nobody does that. You look and you go, flip, must be the battery. And you go change the battery. Those are the heuristics and the stereotypes that keep us going, Brian. You don't put a lot of thought into them because you've seen stuff that's similar to those before.
You've had some similar experience. Yeah.
And it helps inform your decision.
You've created some sort of baseline, some sort of file folder, some known prior, selected prior, right?
Exactly.
Is another great term for that, where I said, okay, this thing isn't working. It's likely the batteries. Right. And then, you know, when you would then check and go, wait a minute, I just replaced the batteries yesterday. Now you're going to go on to the next likely thing. The
next most logical scenario.
Wait a minute. Is it the remote broken? Is the IR thing covered up on the TV? What are the other options? Right. And it's all based on your past experience and how well you can look at the problem you're trying to solve and come up with likely scenarios or likely or reasons for why there is a problem. So
add to that the other side of that same coin, the corrupt one. So the lady on Sunday had a corrupt file folder. Her plan was, I'm going to drive all the way into town because we live in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to go to this store, one of the 2 stores in town and the only one open at this time. I'm going to go and grab those items and I'm going to stand in line. But when faced with the external stressor of knowing that there's 2 people in front of me, that I'm now third in line, okay, and that nobody's going to give me any kind of edge or advantage over the other people, I say, F it, all the planning and all the work wasn't worth it, and I throw it away and I walk out. Brian, imagine that person in my story that I gave you. That's exactly what we faced. We faced a human with a corrupt file folder for patients, and that turned into a scrum.
And this is where, you know, where we individually come into play in these scenarios with your thumb on the scale. So great examples, you know, all of those examples are, you're the person who said it, they're coming in with their own. That woman said, F this. She had something else going on in her life that would cause that, meaning this isn't having someone go in front of her in line is not the weight and magnitude of that situation does not dictate that response, right? So why would you immediately get to that type of response? Well, you were already so escalated mentally, so psychologically and physiologically, you know, you're starting to get into that red that you couldn't handle that. And a great example is of that too is driving, right? So,
oh my gosh, so perfect example.
It's a perfect, like, so, you know, people, where I live in the North County, San Diego area, I would say is some of the worst driving I've ever seen in the world. And people are like, well, what do you mean? Because no one drives here for the context that they're in, meaning you go down this road over here, the roads near me, 55 miles an hour is the speed limit. And you'll be middle of the day, you know, I try to go when there's low traffic and stuff, and you've got hardly any cars on the road and people are driving 30. They're looking at their phones. They're not going when the light turns green. So although the planning and and the street and all that stuff that went into the planning of it, right, can handle the traffic right in the area, it's the people that are screwing it up. Now, I compare that, people are like, well, what about in Afghanistan? You ever driven around Kabul? And I'm like, yeah, but there's no rules there. It's chaos. So
Exactly.
I'm okay with chaos when you're in a
Because you
chaotic
understand
situation.
it.
Well, that
Yep.
and you go through a traffic circle there. People don't go in Kabul, but no one gets mad when you cut them off. Like
Right.
that's not it's just everyone's trying to do what they're trying to do. So it's complete chaos, but everyone's playing by the same set of rules. Now, when you come here and you play by your own 35-mile-an-hour rules and a 55, that's you're not playing by the rules, right?
Right.
You're not acting within that context of how you're supposed to. So that's actually why I say it's worse. But the driving thing
No,
is
no.
perfect because perfect examples. McKaylee's got to drop off the little one in the morning at school, and like so and you want to go see the worst driving in the world, go pull up to any school for drop off and pick up. Everyone has that entitlement. I'm going to stop
You're going
right
the
here.
wrong way.
Even the 37 signs that say, do not get out of your car, stop,
right.
open the door, let your kid get out and keep moving, right? People just stop in the middle, block traffic, everything.
Oh
The
my
whole
gosh.
world revolves around them. So what's McKaylee doing? Getting super pissed. And I was like, you're also running late this morning. You got a big meeting, so you got a lot on your mind. Maybe take a breath before you go off on someone in the. You know what I mean, but it's that same thing. That's an example of patience and entitlement and how that ties together. And we get this F this guy attitude.
Yeah.
It's very easy to get to. And you did say the word entitlement, and I don't want anyone to get that wrong on what you mean. Like, everyone goes, oh yeah, the person feels so entitled. It's like, so do you. There's situations where we all
do.
feel that. Like, that's the thing. It's like
that's being human. That's our identity.
Exactly.
We live up to that identity every day.
Hey, I pay my taxes. I do this.
Exactly.
I do that, and I should be able to. I'm entitled. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it. But
let's take a look at how entitlement can be something that you do every day and you don't notice it till you see it. So have you ever been in traffic and all of a sudden it seems the left-hand lane is going faster?
Yeah.
So you turn on your blinker and edge and wave, and then you get in the left-hand lane. What happens?
And it
left lane slow. Now that middle lane's going. Well, I'll be damned. Well, that's entitlement. You think that you're going to get some kind of advantage that you're not going to get out of the situation. And I would counter this. Do you remember driving in Saudi Arabia? Do you remember where you were on a highway coming, let's say, out of Jeddah, and there was a 4-lane going one way?
Yeah.
And now, what do you have in that 4 lanes? You have 7 cars driving abreast of each other in those 4 lanes, and people merging and turning from whatever lane that they want to. And somehow it works. Yeah. And somehow you're sitting there, you know why? Because lack of entitlement. Nobody is saying, I've got this
that's
over
because
you.
Do you remember being in Riyadh and we pull up to a stoplight and on the right lane next to us is literally a donkey pulling a cart, and in the left lane is a brand new Lamborghini, and you're like, this is completely insane. Exactly. How did these two things coexist? But at the same time, there is no, they just go. Like, this is how we do things.
Time, right? Exactly. Which is like doper time.
Yeah.
If God wills me to be there, I'm going to be there, and I'm not going to expend any extra calories. But listen, when you think that you're living a structured life and you start reacting on only 1 or 2 cues, Brian, remember, what's our minimum? Our minimum is 3, right? So what happens is I actually like working in the Levant, or let's say when we're on the ground in Afghanistan, because I understand the time. When are we going to do that? Well, we're going to get to that. You know what I'm saying?
I'm okay with
we're going to get to all of that. Sooner or later, we're going to, right? And that's that hoarder's mentality. But the idea is that they do. And it's not that they're lazy. That's not what this is about. This is not a person that's impetuous because they're lazy. This is a person that's tapping their foot when they already get to the briefing. And you're going like, here we go. Right. And if you don't quash that, I remember the worst injury that I got handcuffing was to my left wrist. I still have the scar from the ratchet in Nepal from a unit back in the day. The transport unit got on the Discovery. And so they would call the transport unit for chain of custody to prove that you handed the prisoner to somebody else and they took it in. And that was double time and a half in the city. So anybody wanted to, and when you weren't out there making the felonies, you wanted to scoop down, grab the felony prisoner and run away with them so you would get court time. And so I was fighting with this guy, and it was RA after a chase. The person's got the gun under the seat. He's going for that. And I just got him, and I'm going, okay, here we come out. And all of a sudden, I hear click, click, and I got this wrist. Whoop, I'm yanked out of the car. Suspect's still in the car because they were so excited, right? Well, what that is that's a lack of tactical patience. What you're doing is allowing the situation to dictate the op tempo. Anytime you do that, what you've done is you've corrupted space-time. So now the gift of time and distance is a foregone conclusion. No, it's a wasted a wasted number of calories in your life. We have to put space-time first. We have to understand that time is relative and that your time and distance gap is what's going to keep you alive. So if you willingly decide to violate that today, come on, come on, come on. You get what I'm trying to say? And you're pushing the issue, Brian. What's going to happen is your impatience is going to get you killed. What happens to the best mountain climbers? What happens
Yeah.
to the best
Yeah, it was just,
kayakers and stuff? They
they go
die
too far.
because they pushed it too far. Why? Because they've seen just enough, stereotypically or heuristically, they've seen just enough to say, I got this, I've been there before. They underestimate it.
Yeah, and that's that balance between having a low level of training, education, or understanding in one of those situations, or such a high level that like you can almost fall victim to the same mistakes, because
of course,
one, the person is ignorant and doesn't know what they're doing. The other one has done this so many times they think they know what they're doing, and that's always that balance. But you brought up a great point about time being relative, and especially, you talk about too, you brought the cultural differences, Middle East and here, so there's big ones in that, right?
Sure.
In terms of how we look at it, but because we pack our day full of all these things that we want to do and get done, and I do it because this happens to me all the time. I love planning out exactly what I'm going to do, like especially if I'm leaving the house and have to go drive somewhere, like I'm going to do that in the most efficient manner, because I don't like driving a lot around here. It's just my thing. I try to do things at low level times when I can, you know what I mean? So it's how I get there. But because I plan out so much and I try to do so much in a day, when someone gets in my way, I instantly feel that, like, God, you know what, this is going to affect. Now I only have whatever time to work on the gym.
Oh yeah.
And I got to do this, and now I got to go pick up a little one. And so I take it personally, like this person is negatively impacting my day because they want to sit on their phone at a stoplight and then drive like an ass and not pay attention. So they're affecting my life by their lack of care of anything, right? And I get that all the time. So I got to walk myself back, because you brought up a good point, is time is relative, right? Where you brought up doper time and inshallah time that we've had, where it's just, hey, if these things are going to happen, then they will happen. Now
and they're going to happen absent your intervention,
right? So
in almost every instance,
having that, and because you go back to that when you get into highly stressful events, right? So that could be that business meeting or whatever's happening, and your flight was delayed, and now you're hurried up and you're trying to get there, or it's like you said with law enforcement work, you see it a lot. Why? Because I have 37 other things to do. So this thing right now is getting in the way of that. It's taking too long, and now you're impacting my life, and I'm going to take that personal, and now I'm going to go, you know what, F this. And then that's when I make that catastrophically bad decision. That's why it's hard. So we do that. That's a natural tendency that humans, especially the way we deal with things in the West, sort of, it's a cultural thing as well.
I'll agree.
Of how we get into the kind of trick bag with these situations, to where we have to say, look, and especially with your law enforcement examples, like this could, any situation you're in could potentially, has the potential to become deadly, right? Just by the fact of what your job is.
Exactly.
And, right. So
sleeping, standing, walking, driving, everything
doesn't matter, right? So every one of those has the potential. So therefore, when you're in those situations, you have to take, and this is the way I look at it, Greg, and you can add to it or tell me I'm wrong, but I look at it as, you have to look at it as, this is now the only thing in my world right now. This is my life. This is the one thing. This is the one thing I am concerned about for the rest of my life. This is it. Like, it doesn't matter what time I was supposed to get off, or shift change, or this thing, whatever it is that I'm dealing with, is now my entire world. And when I do that, it allows me psychologically and physiologically to de-escalate, because I'm not putting my thumb on the scale anymore. I'm not physiologically increasing my arousal, thinking about 17 other things. I'm getting rid of all of that. So I'm actually sense making and problem solving faster, more efficiently, because I let all that stuff go in that moment, right?
In that moment.
And then when that moment's over,
most important moment.
And when that moment's over, you do what? And I does that kind of make sense as a description?
It makes
how to handle those situations.
So what you're talking about is physically, meaning the laws of physics as well. So if we have space-time and physics, we're probably on the right track, right? Because those things have been around for a while.
A little bit.
And I would ask you to take a look at the recent shooting at the shopping center in Colorado outside of Denver, where so many people died. Guy in a parking lot grabbed the gun, walked inside. First cop on the scene was shot dead. Okay. When we see that, Brian, That woman on Sunday never anticipated that as a likely scenario, because it was Sunday morning and she just needed 4 things. And who's going to kill me when I need the Bisquick? Who's going to kill me when I need a gallon of milk, right? The problem is, had she stated, this is important enough for me to tune in to the event that I'm doing now, she would have parked the right way. She would have looked around before she walked in the store. She would have got her items. She would have checked out, and she would have been in the perfect mindset to go back and have a wonderful Sunday. But she didn't. What she did is she had some Rube Goldberg priority list in her own mind, and she allowed the priorities to dictate her life in that moment. And you cannot do that.
And even, well, look at that situation right there. So she dropped her stuff and left it, which means all of the time that she just took to go to the store, walk through, gather all those items, go to pay, all of that time that she took to do that was now wasted because of her decision to walk, just to leave, rather than spend an extra 5 minutes.
I would say, let's not use the term wasted. If you're listening and you know us, I would say traded. You traded valuable time that you could have used somewhere in your life. How many times do we want to be on our deathbed and go, man, I wish I could have just whatever. So time is relative, baby. And guess what? If you misuse it or abuse it, you're not going to have it again. So I like the term waste, but she wasn't wasteful. She still has to go do those events. Okay. So she traded that time in the moment for an emotional memory, which, I showed them. I stormed out of here, and now she's out in the parking lot in the car going, I got to wait till City Market opens. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, that balancing act. Look, I'm not going to make any friends on this next statement. There's a vid that's going out all over the place that shows a shooting with a bad guy, and a couple of cops are stopping, and there's a car full of bad guys, and I'm not going to attribute anybody to anything. But at the end of it, we see the 21 gun salute, what appears to be, because the point of view of the camera doesn't show us everything that's happening. And it almost looks like we have a flurry of shots that's at the end of it. You know what those flurry of shots felt like when I saw it? And I'm not testifying to it, but I'm saying what it felt like to me is, F this guy. And okay, you're saying, but the guy shot at him and everything else. Yeah, but there's a time that the fight is over. And when that fight is over and you're protracting that situation because you're overwhelmed by emotions, I get it. Okay, but you need a timeout chair. You need to be sat down. We need to talk to everybody in the agency and say, listen, I get it, but this is not how we do business, and go back to square one. If not, Brian, that becomes the standard.
Well, we
just invented the standard.
That's a failure in training, right? Not being able to stop, not being
failure
able to
in training.
back.
What always goes with failure in training? Failure in leadership. And it doesn't matter how we see those; they're always together. They're always partners.
No, and that's a great example of when you've seen that. And when I've seen people who handle this stuff well is, you brought it up, is they're very good at understanding really time and how relative it is.
I totally agree.
In good ways and bad ways, meaning I've seen people who have done great things and solved problems in situations because they sat there and they just said, you know what, this is now what I'm doing. I'm going to talk this through. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to forget all of this other chaos that's going around me. And I'm going to be single point of focus. And almost on like the criminal side, right? Look at the most interesting stuff is stuff that comes out of prisons, right? Because how they make weapons, the food creations people make with the stuff they can get at the little shop, that thing there, like all of that stuff. Because why? It's like you see that stuff and you're like, wow, God, these guys are so crafty and really smart. It's like, no, dude, they got nothing but time. When you have nothing but time, how creative can you get in your environment? Well, you can get really creative because that's all you have to do to occupy your life is, I'm going to make literally a shiv out of a newspaper, and I can fold it enough times, to make it hard enough. And then I can actually cut someone with it, if it's sharp enough at the point, if I fold it right. Like that's to me, that's insane because I got a lot to do today, right? But when you have nothing else to do, so that's why it's one of the major contributing factors to why, these situations escalate because they're operating in a different time than, like you just said, the officer that pulled up and pulled someone over and has I know there's it was a good stop. These guys are unregistered vehicle. They're all felons. Like,
Yep.
I know there's likely going to
Yep.
be, based on my past experiences, I know that there's likely going to be something illegal in the car that they're not supposed to be doing because
Yep.
their whole life has been
They
that way.
did everything right. Yes.
Right. But then what's going on in the other guy's mind is, well, I've got time. I can sit here all day. I can make this, drag this out as long as possible, make it as hard as possible for you. So sometimes turning off that switch of these are the 17 things I need to get done.
You have
all
to,
the direction, like it's difficult, right?
So you named, and I want to go past this too far because I want to make sure that you can comment on it. You named exactly why the Combat Hunter program was essential and why it was successful. Because you had Marines going into an ambiguous environment that they hadn't been operating in before. Certainly not the Marines that we were training. They were dealing with a cunning enemy that turned a washing machine timer and the things under your sink at home into a bomb. And we had the choice of teaching them all about the components of the bombs, all the different colors and shapes and sizes they come in, all the different delivery methods, for example, or, hey, where would you put that bomb to kill you? What? Yeah. If I was going to kill you or you were going to kill you, where would you put it? Because I got to bring you to the bomb or the bomb to you. You see what I'm trying to say? Define that crime scene. And Shelley and I had this discussion just before she left this morning, and not permanently, folks. The idea is that get used to looking where you're sitting and where you're walking as a crime scene. Imagine that yellow police tape around there. Imagine the outline. That'll sober your ass up so you can go on the rest of your day. So when you were talking about the prisoners were just like the Mujahideen or a terrorist group or ISIL or ISIS. And again, I'm not making a disparaging comment. At one time they were heroes and now they're enemies. That'll keep changing. But what they were forced to do, Brian, I don't have a flipping Home Depot. Do you get what I'm trying to say? When I was in Sangin, those guys were coming up with the most novel ways of creating, triggering mechanisms. Okay, they didn't have stuff where, well, I'll take a graphite.
I'll hop on Amazon and I'll quick and get that Prime delivery. Right.
So that part right there shows you that time is relative, and if you put enough time to something, you'll have a successful resolution. That's what we're talking about, and that is not only Combat Hunter, but it's also the tactical patience that we spoke of earlier. Tactical patience is you weighing the benefits of the action right now or right now. It comes down to that. It?
No, and that's a great way. I like those simple ways to remind myself or look at situations, right? So like I always tell you, I do the one, in the mirror every morning. Someone might try to kill you today. That doesn't mean someone's going to. Doesn't allow me to be hyper vigilant. It just goes to my brain and gives a little, let's go.
I've got that in my house.
Yeah.
With Shelley every time.
Well, with Shelley, that's usually that reminder because you know where it's going to come from.
She tells me, remember, I might kill you today. Hey, thank you. I don't need a mirror. I got Shelley. How stupid, but true.
But that's one that I always use. The other one is, my Taylor Swift analogy. Maybe I'm the problem, right? And so those are ways to look at it. But you brought up a really powerful one, and you said, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but imagine your life as a crime scene. Imagine this moment, I should say, is a crime scene. What does that mean? What does this look like? How is this going to play out from here? If this is about to be a crime scene where I'm standing, well, is it? Do I have artifacts and evidence to support the fact that, you know what, this is starting to look like a crime scene, right? And I think that's a great way to again, one of those little reminders.
Well, Brian, we know divided attention is bad, right?
Yeah.
And we know that the more divided your attention is, the less likely you are to be able to make we're talking human performance, folks, again, a rational decision in the time that you're given, because space-time is funny that way. Opportunities, just like danger, come and go. Yeah. So what's happening is when we're sizing up the environment, we may miss an opportunity because we're thinking about ancillary stuff that is not. We have to focus pull. We have to look at this. So the focus pull of me standing at that counter and looking around at the people and seeing that yellow tape and having the news broadcaster go today at the whatever, goes whoop, and it brings reality in back where it needs to be. Again, I'm going to say situational awareness, both two different terms, are key, but only after what? only after you've used the wand of critical thinking to
Yeah.
decide spirals
Well,
and outcomes. And
that's the start. The start is the situation. I mean, that's if you don't have that, then you're never going
yep,
to do anything with anything. So that's
anything.
the basic stuff
Yep,
that you have to
autonomic and
you're
automatic.
so you're talking about how time is relative, and we
Yep,
always talk about the gifts of time and distance, and so in all these situations, then I can't slow the spin of the earth and slow time
right.
down. So how do I slow time down in that moment? Meaning, how
Yeah,
do I buy more time? Because part of what we talk about, and even just listening to this, is building some file folders, getting a new perspective on situations will allow you to sense make and problem solve faster, right? The
yep.
more experience I have, the more training, all that stuff. I have more, like we talked about at the beginning, the file folders. But then how do I use that? And how do I literally slow time down? Can I do that?
Yep.
Is that something that I can possibly do in, whether it's the city market example of
Yep.
the checkout, or you're talking about a law enforcement example where it's multiple felons pulled over on the side of the road,
Yep.
you're outnumbered, those things. How do I slow time down?
So it awareness of time is an essential function, because you'll have an epiphany in your life. The female that cooks all the meals on Sunday and says, I'm saving time during the week.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're trading time. Okay. You're trading
Okay.
this time for that time. So what you have to understand is the more distance, and that can be psychological or sociological or physical distance, right? Actual, biometric distance is important. So I'll give you a tool that we did. We were on one of the combat towns and had some real heavy hitters. They were really good Marine unit, it happened to be at the time. And we were standing down training role players down in the middle of the Ville. And I asked every one of these guys that was playing the role players that were experienced vets, multiple tours, everything else. I said, do me a favor and point to where the sniper took the shot. And they were like, we haven't even started the scenario. I go, you ever been on this mountain town before? Oh, yeah. Have you guys done scenarios like that? Yeah. Well, where did they put the back in my day was the M60? What did you guys use, like a 240 or something, right? And where did they put that ambush? And they all would look around up at the stage and they would go, I think it was right there.
Yeah.
And so I'd go, follow me. And we would walk up there and I would say, prove it. And what they would do is they would find the little goat trails from all the units that were there before.
Right.
They would find the MREs, the meals. They would find the poop stop. You get what I'm trying to say? The buried ammo, the discarded links because they didn't want to pick up their brass. And they would go, wow. And I would say, now let's go over there where you didn't choose. And we couldn't find that evidence. Brian, perspective increases your ability to get distance from a situation. So just taking a step to the left and looking for the sniper or the IED might disclose it. The shadows will be different. The later in the day, vegetation decays and wilts, and you can pick out a sniper. So what I'm saying is, if you can pick out a sniper, a bomb, those are really, really dangerous things, right?
Hard.
Then you can pick out the person that's impatient in line. And you know what? If you can, let them go first. And if you can't, don't be confrontational. Just do your thing, right? And measure the wave, because it's a wave and a particle of potential danger or violence in this situation. Potential danger, violence, and opportunity all look alike. You're the one that has to make the decision on what they are. So to give yourself a little bit of distance, to take a step behind potential cover. Do you get what I'm trying to say? A lot of things will stop a 9 milli round. If you don't know what those things are, go online. I bet there's online a tutorial on what stops bullets, right? And those are the types of things, Brian, that you have to look for. And you know what? There's no harm, no foul in doing what the lady did on Sunday morning, setting your stuff down and absenting yourself from the situation. Because I'll tell you right now, I'd rather face a shoplifting or walk out of a store, fail to pay or do something like that, than to get shot in the back of the head, right? So if the situation rises and the anxiety and danger and violence level go, leave your items behind and just go. Just leave and try again. You may save a life, and the life you save may be your own.
And that's another good perspective. Taking that, maybe again, like you talk about the woman at the city market putting her stuff down. We don't, right? You're never going to know what's going on in that person's life, but on their, so you look at their behavior and their actions, right? maybe that was her thing. Maybe she had so much going on that she knew, I can't take this situation psychologically right now. I'm
Yep.
about to erupt. I'm going to leave right now to literally to de-escalate herself. Maybe that was her call. I've had to do stuff
Yep.
like that before where I've gotten angry over something, and you know what? I'm ready. I'm seeing red, and I went, you know what? I'm gonna have to step out right now because where I'm headed is not in a good place, and good
Right.
things aren't going to come from it. You know, I'm gonna
Right.
hit that tipping point in Gladwell, and I'm gonna go over the top, and I'm gonna do something that is inappropriate for the situation. And
Yep.
I've had to calm myself down, right? I've had to do that. I mean, you know, for a number of reasons, anger is my go-to emotion, so
It is.
I
It
know that about
absolutely is.
myself, and I have to go.
And self-abuse. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. So,
like, I don't know.
so,
Yeah. You've made
so
me cry
that,
many times today alone.
so
No,
that,
but
so
you're spot on. So look, here again, we're talking about trading time. There
yes,
may have come a point, a tipping point. Thank you, the Gladwellian thinkers in the crowd. Well, not really Gladwellian thinkers, more than reactors
readers.
or readers. Yeah.
He's
So maybe there
remember
came
my
that
it's
point.
a caveat.
Yeah.
Gladwell's not the interesting character. The people he writes about are. I'll
And
just
he
keep
writes
yeah.
well.
Oh, and he's used the line,
The
"Don't let the
king,
facts get in the way of a perfectly good story,"
every book
over
so
the
far.
top. Yeah.
Yep.
So take a grain of salt take it with a grain of salt everything he
Here's,
says. But
yeah, it's so much
anyways,
salt that you're going to get diabetes. I get it. So Brian, that person in line traded time. So
yep.
maybe this was it. Maybe she sat there and did the mental calculation, said, even if this guy lets me go first, I've run out of time. I need to be at that other location. I'll just send somebody back. Okay. Maybe it was as simple as that. So that would be a tactical patience decision based on space time. Now, maybe the person said, hey, F this guy. I'm going to go out to the car and I'm going to get my revolver out of the
Yeah.
dashboard and I'm going to come back in and I'm going to shoot them. And because I've got, whatever, Brian, I'm older now. So
Yeah.
threatening me with a life sentence don't mean as much.
Yeah,
Do you get what
exactly.
I'm trying to say? So the idea is that person might think that same way and shoot up the place. If you're not in the right headspace when you enter into a situation, and I'm not talking hypervigilant, I'm talking being in the right headspace, sizing up opportunity is the same as sizing up danger. And guess what? You have to be ready for both. If you're not ready for the opportunity, that van keeps going and you don't get the $1 million a week or whatever that shit is. You see what I'm saying? I mean, the lottery, the lottery pays about, well, less than the chance of you get hit by lightning this week.
Right.
You get what I'm trying to say? And the idea though is that somebody always wins. Well, what's the difference in the space time? The difference is if you don't buy a ticket, you'll never win the lottery. So you might be the lottery winner in that line when that person goes out and goes, I swear to God, I'm coming back in. Your line, you remember the movie line where Buscemi is checking off the people?
Yeah.
I
Like people
think
to
of
kill
that
us. Yeah, from
since
Billy Madison.
I
That's always my thing is I always try to
since you've
be
told me that one, I always use it now.
yeah, so try to be friendly to people because you never know that might be the person that's going to shoot up the place and they take one look at
Yep.
you and like, you know what, that guy smiled and said hello to me.
Yep.
I'm gonna
Open the
let
door.
him
Held the door for me.
I'm gonna
Yep.
let him live today. You never know. It's very
You never know.
self-preservation, but you bring up that other perspective now of the observer from the observer's perspective, right?
Right.
So we've talked about a bunch of examples, and your example of the woman at the city market is you're the observer, right?
Yep.
And she throws that stuff down. So that's a great thing to pick up on and go, you just walked us through it, that most likely, most dangerous course of action. So most likely she's pissed, whatever,
Yep.
she's overwhelmed and she's got to go outside and either cool off or leave, or she's like, that sense of entitlement is so
Yep.
high that this threw off her day so much she's going to talk to her therapist about it because she lacks coping skills and adaptability and all that stuff. But the MD COA, the most dangerous course of action, is just what you said. You know what? That's it. F this.
Yep.
She almost does that from her perspective of F that guy, and she goes out to the car
It's on.
and grabs a gun and comes back in. So it's always good to
So what do we need to worry about there? Listen, we're not talking about playing devil's advocate. We're talking about hard science. And what we need to remember in that situation, Brian, and you hit on it a couple of times, beware the observer expectancy bias. What's that? That means that you're anticipating what you're going to see until it happens. Well, guess what? You just missed an opportunity, didn't you? So what you got to do is you got to shut up sometimes and just watch. Be that fly on the wall and let the situation speak to you. The best human behavior profilers are the ones that listen to the environment. They feel and smell and taste it. And guess what heuristics are based on, Brian? What are those things in the environment that feel, smell, taste, that I can touch, that remind me of other things? And heuristics are almost always right. Okay. Stereotypes are almost always right. And I'm not talking about a stereotype that, I'm a German, so I got a big head and a fat nose. Those are counterproductive. That's just being a racist or an asshole in a different manner, right? I'm talking about the stereotype that when these things happen, this happens. When these things, so I'll give you a stereotype. If you walk into a business and there's 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 next to your head when you're walking in or out the doors in bright colors, that means that crime has been there. And guess what? It's a powerful heuristic that crime may be there in the future. So that atmospheric, which is, the simplest form of stereotype, should warn me, and I should be more alert in those areas. You know where I don't see that? You ever see those numbers in the inside door of a library?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm trying to say? Or in an operating theater at a hospital? No. But you can expect that if there's a drug box in the emergency room where you're getting your kid treated for stitches, you stand a chance, right? Are there not narcotics that are stored there? Are they? You get what I'm saying? You have to size that up. What do you use every day to do it? Use heuristics and stereotypes. And what do you do to make yourself better, to improve your human performance? You slow time down using tactical patience by saying, I'm too close. I'm running to get to the store because it's about to close. I have to take a knee. I really have to check my time 20 times.
And to kind of, you bring up the sort of shooting example of, let's say that woman walks out of City Mark and goes in, grabs the gun out of her car and comes back in. Heuristics don't work if you don't have them, meaning if you don't have the file folders, meaning
what do you come up on?
But that's the thing, is that's why a lot of these things, when people go, well, I saw this and I saw that and I saw this, but I didn't expect them to come back in shooting, because you don't think that way, because your mind doesn't ever go, I'm going to, one of these days, I'm going to go grab the gun out and start shooting. That's such a small percentage of people that it's statistically insignificant.
Rare.
So because we don't think that way and we don't expect that, that's where that observer expectancy bias comes in, right? We go, oh, they're gone. That person stormed out of the meeting and they're leaving the building, and I guess they're quitting, and they're just, we all knew, Jim was going to get upset one day, and he's been saying it. And that's why they don't see him come back in with a gun and start killing people, because you don't expect that to happen if you don't think that way, right? I mean, I think that's an important thing to realize, is that those expectations, I have to be able to sit there, like you said, slow time down. And so, you know what? It's probably unlikely that she's going to come back here and shoot up the place, but why don't I peek out that window to see where she goes? Why don't I say, just take the extra second to look before I walk out into that parking lot? You get what I'm saying?
Where did you hit something?
And so,
listen, for our Canadian friends, and Brian, ILET's coming up. Yeah. Everybody look up ILET.
I'll put a link in the detail episode notes.
So, what's the Nova Scotia shooter? I just can't think of his name.
Wortman? Is that
Wortman? Gabriel Wortman. Thank you so much for that. When you're in the moment, folks, sometimes you can't think of it. So Gabriel Wortman did slow, deliberate motions over a long period of time. He traded spontaneity because he wanted to remain undiscovered. You get where I'm going?
Yeah.
On his anniversary, he's with his old lady, his bylaw, not married, but statutory, at a party in his community, which is a seaside, or waterfront, beachside community. And something goes wrong at that party. And he had been waiting his whole life. He's an injustice collector. He's waiting his whole life for something to push him over the edge. And during this ceremony, during this party, it happens. Everybody knew. They start going back. His girlfriend's already negotiating when they're out in the parking lot in the driveway. No, Gabe, don't let this be right. Takes her back, beats her, ties her to the bed, already unpacking the guns, already going out and putting the uniform on. Somebody at that party, Brian, of the 7 people that died right there at that party, should have looked out that window, like the person that we're talking to on Sunday morning, just looking out the window and making sure that the lady goes in her car and leaves, and is not turning around to drive it into place. Those are likelihood spirals. And if you don't investigate likelihood spirals, you're trading that time. You get where I'm going? You're literally saying, I'm willing to give up this time, which may be warning time, which may be hiding or taking cover time, or running time. I'm willing to trade that because I'm not going to focus solely on the situation that I find myself in. I'm going to say F that woman and tune out. And it's a death sentence. And rarely, Brian, so rare that they take whole broadcasts about it, make movies and books about it, but you could be the one that wins that lottery, and it's a shitty lottery to win.
No, it is, and those are great examples, and that's why I take the approach of when I feel myself getting worked up over something, or I'm busy and I'm
Yep.
rushing, it's that I have to take that breath, and like I shut the music off, put all the windows down, take a big breath in when I'm driving, and go, all I'm doing is driving right now. I'm
Yep.
going to do
Driver
this
drives.
one thing,
Right.
and then what starts to happen, because that's what, when we ride around with people and they're like, how the hell do you guys see so much about what's going on? It's like, this is all we're doing right now.
That's
We're
it.
just looking, like, this
We
is
did
it.
that in DC. You remember that?
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
looking, I'm not listening to the music, I'm not reading text, I'm not thinking about this. I'm only thinking about possible outcomes, or explanatory storylines, or reasons why people are here, or things that I look for typically and
Right.
try to find. So it, when you only focus on those things, and that's the Wortman example, all of those shooters, that's the example. They're all of those are there, those pre-attack indicators, whether it's
Prevent indications of violence.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We don't. And again, I just want to call you on that. We don't want to use the pre-attack in
Oh
that
wow, did
instance.
I
They were
say that?
pre-attack only because we were just talking about
Talking
how
about
bad it is
attacks.
to say
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
And the idea is that Brian, you hit on something. I want you guys to understand the street genius that is Brian Marin. When you're talking about it, there are certain recognizable impatience triggers in your life that you attend to,
Yes.
which means that take your attention. So you're vulnerable. You know that you may make mistakes in that moment. So by addressing those, Brian, well, you just gave a life strategy for everybody. Listen, Dr. Brian Marin, everybody. and I would say the first one of those recognition triggers would be the one that you repeat often, Taylor Swift, hey, maybe it's me. So
Yeah.
if you're a copper out there, if you're working HR, if you're a mom, if you work triage, I want you to think for just a minute before you open that mouth to say and another thing, before you open your mouth and say F this guy or girl, I want you to step back from the situation and just mentally, Brian, trade some of your time for that day by going 5 and 4 and 3 and see how the outcome is. If the outcome is so deadly and dangerous that you have to act. But if you don't, give yourself the gift of time and distance, you'll make better decisions. You won't be forced to account for your actions afterwards and go, yeah, upon reflection, it was a really dumb thing to do, or be the one on the news saying, oh, there were no pre-event indication. There's always a pre-event indication, and specifically with violence or opportunity.
There are things don't happen in a bubble, and this is now another one for me to go, all right, am I doing the F this guy? And we do have countless examples, and the big one too is when you're let's say in some whatever occupation that you're in, and you've been doing it for a while and you have a lot of experience, and here comes the new guy or girl and they say something and you're in a rush and you're doing things. I mean, even doing training courses, when you get someone who, like, for 4 days they haven't said a single word and they've been playing on their phone, but now we're doing practical application, and they come up with, and you almost want to, like, I don't even care what this dude says. They haven't been actively engaged, and they come up and you have to take that second, because what sometimes comes out is like, it's the missing piece of evidence in the Kellner case.
And
they're the ones that saw it.
Exactly.
They had it, but it's very easy to go, hey, come talk to me later or whatever, or, well, yeah, I'm sure that's important. If you don't take that second to just that extra second of investigation, because or that person comes up, and since I have all those known priors about this individual, and they just go rambling on about something that makes no sense. Well, now I know that everything I thought about them is true, and they're still in that same zone. But again, it's just that idea of you don't know what that person's going to come up with and say. So
Brian,
not doing the F this guy is another one I'm going to put into my lexicon.
Yeah, and tactical patience, Brian. You and I, and again, non-attribution folks, follow us around the country. You'll see it yourself. Come to the training, pay because it's better than any show that you've ever seen on Broadway. But you and I were in Philly, and in one time at Philly, we were watching, and the kid was plying his trade, and he was being very vicious and very cunning and very good. And for a split second, he caught the counter surveillance. And so now comes the confrontation. And we were able, in a very short period of time, to trade that moment in time space and make the kid apologize to us because, oh, we weren't conducting surveillance. This has nothing to do with you. Complete de-escalation. And the kid walked out and just went on his day.
Yeah.
Even the people in the place that we were located missed all the signals and all the cues. And what we did is we put up this smoke and mirrors. We did a couple of parlor tricks. What did we do? We gave the kid what he wanted to see.
Yep.
He now had an expectancy. So we gave him the unexpected, which totally, he was like,
completely threw him off track.
And he shut up and walked away.
Yeah.
He had no idea because he didn't consider that. So what are we doing? Strive to build empathy at every opportunity. Slow time down because tactical patience is a winning strategy. And you have to understand your own internal triggers, because if you become impatient, you become vulnerable. And vulnerable means I miss an opportunity or I miss a chance for de-escalation, or I walk into the trick bag. I mean, I literally walk onto the X and now I go, hey, this looks like a lot like a crime scene. I mean, come on. You got to do that in your day. You got to change it. One thing about your day today and watch how better your week becomes.
Yeah, no, and I like that one too. Am I in a crime scene right now? And based on all of the crime shows I've seen, there's DNA everywhere, and there's
yeah. Well, I stayed at that hotel as well.
Exactly.
And thank God the lights were dim.
Because how many hotels have I walked in and go, I'm either
do you remember the one
I'm in a crime scene right now, or about to be in a crime scene, or it's still active. Yeah.
Do you remember the one that they said that the kitchenette available, all that stuff, and it was that rickety table with the microwave that was in the center courtyard outside with the extension cord that was running to it. And there was a line of about 3 or 4 people with 7-Eleven burritos in line. I walked to the front desk and I go, kudos to you, sir. That's the biggest, Buffalo job in advertising I've ever seen.
A previous organization we worked for had us in, I don't want to say the name of the hotel chain, but it was in El Paso, Texas, right on the border. And I'm assuming this building has now been raised and is not there, but it was one of those where we drive into the parking lot and all of a sudden we could see there's a door propped open, someone's sitting back in the shadows smoking a cigarette, looking right into the parking lot. We're like, well, there's a deal going on right now, or there's
here we got it.
Or
we videotaped the whole thing.
Staying somewhere else. Like, yeah. So I like the crime scene one, but technically also caveats that if it is your job,
of course. And think about it, Brian. If there's a copper that's watching right now, what did we tell the copper? We told the copper, you don't know anything, everything rather. You're not the center of your universe. Things happen for a reason. So if you approach it with a little bit of extra time and a little bit of extra empathy, you might not have to go to the extremes. So is that a form of psychological de-escalation?
Absolutely.
Yes. But it's not meant as an insult.
Yeah,
But you get it how it comes like an insult?
Yeah, no,
it's not.
It does. It's actually, but it shouldn't be taken that way, because what you're doing is you are, by taking those steps, Greg, you're increasing your performance. You're actually are better.
Exactly.
So you're getting rid of the extraneous information that your brain's got going on at any given time. You're only attending to the things that are important in your environment, which means you can make problem solve faster, which means you can slow time down, increase your time and distance from you in any potential catastrophic situation. You can control that moment by controlling you. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Like,
and you're the largest, the most, the easiest factor you can control is you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? So I'm with you on that. I think that's perfect.
And I think that's taking those platitudes and putting them into action in terms of there's one factor you control yourself. Yeah, you can't control the things that happen in your life, but you control your reactions. Well, not really. Sometimes emotional reactions.
No, and this is one of those that we're showing that it's a not really, isn't it?
I think that's another a good takeaway. That's another one I'm going to add in. Don't do the F this guy. I mean that's for sure. So
also I know we have to do a weekly update. How do people get to the Patreon site? That's not this site.
No, so if you're listening, you can follow us on Instagram real easily. Look us up on the Let the Greg podcast. On Patreon, it's just a couple bucks a month, and we put a bunch of extra content on there. We do like a weekly recap. We throw up there like a 20-minute thing on like this, but of what happened during the week. And then we also put on different like kind of behind the scenes stuff or webinar stuff that we've done before, or things that you would typically have to pay for are going to be on there, and it's all kinds of extra stuff. So I thank you for reminding me, Greg. I'm horrible at self promotion actually, and we
Yeah, but self abuse.
self-abuse I'm really good at. It's the
Very good.
self-promotion. It's the finding value in my own life and the things that I do.
One day.
Someday. But yeah, please check out the Patreon site. You can find the link in the episode details right now.
Yep.
If you're listening to this, it's all on there. You click to support the show and it'll go there, and we take that and it's just it's a real small amount of money, but would give you plenty of information for it. So the value is there, but also it kind of helps us do some things with the show to keep it professional and do more with it and add more content as it grows. So
absolutely,
thank you for that. And then also, please, everyone, check the episode details. I'll have a link to the ILET seminar we're doing. I think it's free. Yeah, it's for law enforcement, but anyone can sign up for it. So there's all kinds of presenters. Greg and I are doing a whole segment on there. It'll be really cool. And we have a collaboration we did for a e-learning online module that's free. Again, goes over some of the stuff that we do in real time on a video that some of you have seen before, some of you may have not, but you can check that out on there as well. So stay tuned, follow along with us, and you can do that. And I'll put that link in the Patreon actually as well too. Now for those folks, they can hop on that. So any final words, Greg, for this episode of F This Guy?
Yeah, I got to go pee before we record the next thing. But other than that, everybody knows, Brian, everybody listening knows I'm getting impatient. And so I'm going to put down my groceries and walk to the bathroom.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Please don't forget that training changes behavior.